Okay, let's go. This time unmuted. Um, yeah, I just came home from a game. Uh, I'll look into it. My opponent played a weird opening, but I played normal moves, so it was fine. Played a gambit. My opponent played a gambit, even technically. Um, I think I got out of the opening decently, but I spent a lot of time on it. So let's take a look. I played e4, e5, knight f3, f5 happened here. And well, I already looked at this move with the engine. You can apparently take both of these, and they're both a bit over +1. And I took with the knights, queen f6. Apparently this is just the main line. I played d4, d6, and knight c4. The idea of not going back is because it gets kicked by taking the pawn. And I played d4, d6. I thought that was good to include because I get the pawn in the center and this bishop gets blocked in. So yeah, my opponent takes, played bishop e2 and queen f7, which vacates the f6 square for the knight, which is useful because I now attack the pawn and the knight defends. And here I play the move d5, which has so many things it does that I thought it had to be good. My opponent was curious about it, but I mean, it makes sense to me on so many levels. One, it permanently makes this a weakness, this pawn on e4. It's not that big of a weakness. I think my opponent can probably hold on to it, but it's always a thing. Two, it blocks this in, so it blocks this bishop in, and that's actually 3 already. But it blocks this. You can't play c6 because the pawn on I take and the pawn on d6 hangs. You can probably do it at some point in this game, but eh. 4, I think, already, is it vacates the d4 pawn square for a maneuver like this, and 5, it creates a strong square on e6 for me. And this maneuver actually also happens to some extent, attacking c7 and then I move to d4. Which, I mean, that makes sense, right? The knight on d4 is just excellent there. But yeah, I thought d5 was probably a very good move. My opponent played bishop e7, castle, castle. I already spent a lot of time here to figure out what I should do. And it's only getting worse from here, actually. But I think my position is still very good. I played the move bishop g5. I wanted to play the bishop before putting my knight on e3, where it probably belongs. But then c6 is also an option, by the way. With c6 I don't have to take, and then this becomes a permanent weakness if my pawn gets taken. So yeah. And this knight also supports something to g4 maybe. And bishop g5 also threatens to take and win this pawn. Especially since this pawn, which you will attack after that, is defended by my knight. I believe you can play b5 in that position, but then I move the knight, it gets taken, and then I win this pawn back. So yeah, I am properly threatening to win a pawn here, fairly certain. So my opponent defends. And here I play knight e3. I could not have flipped this around, because then my bishop wouldn't be here. But my bishop would have maybe been here. Which, that might be better actually, honestly. So instead of what I did, I could have played knight e3 to prevent this bishop from developing, basically. because both the knight and the bishop need to be on d7. So you move your knight first, probably to here or there. But yeah, this happened. My opponent decided to accept that I could take here. Played queen g6, which is probably the better way. I assumed that something like that would happen, because bishop g6 I would take. Let's say bishop takes, and I'd get bishop g4, which is a big threat here. And let's say this, I'd still play it, and then we can play from here, like knight f5, maybe not, but maybe something else, like, I don't know, actually. This is kind of attacked, so maybe I still play knight b5 and d4 or something, not sure. But yeah, queen g6 makes sense, allowing me to take. But also this bishop is hanging. If I take, you do have to take the bishop though, or the knight though, because otherwise I take here with check. I think that's true. Maybe you can do this and the knight gets trapped. Like this, then I win. I don't even win there. But like, I mean, this must be fine still, right? Let's see. Yeah. That didn't happen. I just took the bishop, or took with the bishop first. Bishop takes. And here I decided to do my maneuver, which I assumed would be good. Knight b5, attacking here. Oh, there's one thing I completely forgot to mention, which is interesting. Bishop g5 here allows kind of this, with winning a pawn, but it doesn't work here because of queen takes, defending. So you can't take there, but if you take the queen, I take, and then c7 hangs in that variation. You can also look at it here, which I forgot to do in the game, but we looked at it afterwards and I think it's still good. Knight takes d5. You still have to play queen takes d5, I'm fairly certain. The point is that after knight takes, you defend like laterally, so you can't do that. So you have to still take with the queen. Oh yeah, that's the point. If bishop g5, knight f5, because the queen is pinned. So you can't take here. To take the piece you have to do this. And then c7 hangs in the end again. So it does still work. But I did not see that. Somehow. I looked at a lot of things, but I didn't see this. But yeah, knight b5, let's go back. Attacks here, knight a6, knight d4. Which threatens here and here. And maybe here, depending on what you do. So my opponent took with the bishop, takes, took, whatever, same. Not tooks. And moved the knight to c5. Yeah, to c5. Because otherwise I'd take. But now I can take here. So this position I stared at for like half an hour, and I don't know, like I should be better here. I really should be. But I don't know for sure if I am and how to play this. My opponent said that I mean I looked at b4 very often in a lot of different variations, even on like this third or the second, the third, the fourth move even, playing b4 in some line. But I thought that the knight retreats like this and it's probably fine for black. In a lot of variations. Yeah. So I wanted to do it. I wanted to play b4 quite often, but I just never got around to it. And my opponent at some point had some time and played a5. Um, so yeah. I mean, I can take the bishop, clearly. And then but then this knight is gone. This knight is quite good. And I can't blockade, because then I lose the d-pawn. So I need to look at e3 in every line. And here was the line that I looked at, and which I went into it eventually, deciding that this is probably like, if my opponent goes into this line as well, I'm probably better. Knight takes f5. I did play, and the line that I looked at was this, h3. You have to take with queen, otherwise I play b4 and win this pawn, of course. h3, and I want to play bishop g4 and to get a good bishop. h5 is a weakness which I'd be happy to accept. So I looked at e3, which I absolutely have to calculate. Attacking here and here, of course. But this one isn't that big of a deal. So I assumed that I looked at this. Take, and now I have a bishop in a versus knight in a bishop in a single rook endgame, which probably decent. That's option 1. You can also actually wait, did I? Yeah, that's option 1. You can also take here, in which case I think I'd take where was the line again? There was a b4 at some point. Yeah, oh yeah, b4 here, because the knight can't go to d7. And on either of these, I don't remember. Wait, no, it wasn't bishop g4. It was, oh yeah, no, it was just b4 here, and then this line as option 1, and then like this, and king e3 or something, probably. And now I'd have a bishop versus knight, b4 in this variation, but you can also play knight e4 and knight d7. Knight d7 I'd play bishop g4, because that's a skewer, and on queen f7 I play bishop e6, which wins clearly. So you have to, I believe, do this. And then this wins. I can sack my queen. No, that doesn't win. Sorry. I can't sack my queen. I have to do this. Allow the promotion. Wait, no. It's different. This is the knight e4 line. No, knight d7. Okay, sorry. Knight d7 wasn't good because of bishop g4, and you don't have that. And in the knight e5 line, or knight e4 line, I'd still play bishop g4, or I could play bishop d3, but I don't think so. And so pawn takes, I'd go here, I believe. I think that's fine. And then wait, no. Wait, what's going on here? Maybe it's just this. Maybe not. I can't remember exactly what this didn't happen though. But knight e4, Or was it this? There was a nice line where you could sack the queen and play this, and if I play king f1, this is checkmate. So I'd have to allow this promotion. But I win the knight in the end, so I have a queen and a bishop versus 2 rooks. None of this happened, because my opponent didn't play e3. But I did have to calculate all of this. My opponent played queen g6. And now I was really very stuck. Because if I play my bishop here, it just gets kicked, and I need to go back, basically. Which might be good enough. Which might be fine, though. If I play... I can play b4. I can play c4. c4 seems decent, but then you might get knight d3 things. That's kind of the issue. e3 always attacks the c2 square, but moving this c2 pawn allows knight d3. And you also need to defend this, so you want to play c4, but maybe you can't. And this, and if you, I looked at b4 here, knight e7, and then you can play knight bishop g4, because now I attack the knight. So for example this, I didn't play b4 here, but knight e5. My goal was to attack this pawn at some point. Let's say this check, this seems decent to include, but now you get very big issues here in a lot of lines. So I'd play like king h2 and slowly start winning this pawn, which seems probably good for me. Instead I thought, let's like prevent some stuff first. Let's play king h2. But actually, I mean, this is kind of scary, but my opponent's secondary plan is to attack f2, which I now defended once less. Yeah. So now my opponent plays a5. And I still don't want to play bishop g4. I had to find some different moves. I considered a3 to still play b4, but I played rook ae1 first, rook ae8, and again here I looked at it. But instead I had like, at this point I had under 20 minutes, like 17-ish. So I tried to play a bit quicker and played some inaccurate moves. I really genuinely don't know what to play here. Probably a3. But I play bishop b5, which basically locks in this knight. You can't go to d7 anymore here. And it attacks the rook, so I do gain a tempo. It's also like my bishop was kind of in the way. I wanted to put pressure here and maybe set up b4 at some point. Rook e5 though, and the rook gets... I was looking at this actually, but my opponent just does this and attacks the f2 pawn. And also this, no, not there, here, which I had to defend, and I found rook e3 for that. And on this I believe I still play rook g3. It also like kind of, this creates kind of a pin, which is also why I did that. So second attack, and this defends the pawn a second time and creates some sort of pin. I thought that queen f6 would probably be quite strong for my opponent, but my opponent played queen f7. Queen f6 just trades queens, and I have some issues here and maybe here and here and here, but you can't actually take this because of a pin here. But yeah, queen f7, second attack here, and I believe in a lot of lines you can genuinely take I believe rook takes is currently threatened. So I thought I had to defend it, and I didn't want to play c4 because then my bishop gets stuck. So I played bishop c4. This is also a third attacker here. But yeah, right? Oh yeah, but you can't take because then you get checkmated here. Yep, because I take, checkmate. So my opponent played g6 to prevent the checkmate, and now is properly threatening to take this pawn. Which I defended. I didn't like the move, playing the move f3, but I did it. There are also sometimes piece sacrifice lines where I take here and stuff. So h5 looks decent, threatening h4 to take here afterwards, but h5 I can take there, I believe, because you can't take this because of this. And this actually becomes a checkmate if I play it like... Right? Did I? Or maybe I missed something. Check, check. Maybe it's not checkmate. It's a stalemate there. Really? Or it's a perpetual? Really? I missed something, I guess. Whatever. There are some lines where that could be possible, so I thought that was interesting enough. My opponent obviously didn't play h5. My opponent instead rerouted the knight here, I believe. Yeah. Rerouted the knight here to e5 to attack this pawn again. Was it? No, sorry, not yet. First rook f4, creating big trouble here because of e takes f3, so I had to move the queen. If I moved it here, I'd still have the same issue, so I moved to c3, which does a couple of things. Now my opponent started rerouting. And I considered this, but I don't think that's good enough. Oh yeah, I played, I think I do like the move I played. I played rook g1 here. And the idea is that whenever my opponent actually takes, I get some big pressure on the g file. And my opponent really has to take at some point, otherwise their game just... Otherwise they can't really progress. So knight e5, bishop e2 defending, and now we trade everything. First pawn, knight, then knight. I considered at some point going for this, but there's no real point to do that, I don't think. Bishop takes, rook takes. Here I again looked at these, this one actually. Queen takes a5, but then maybe you get some issues here. Fairly certain you do. I also looked at it in the next move, but still same issues, actually even worse there probably. So take, and we get to a rook endgame, and I immediately played king g2 because I had 1 minute, which is probably the losing move, right? Okay, apparently rook e1 is all, and rook g2 are also losing. Apparently. Yeah, my king just gets cut off. But I played king g2 and we get to this endgame, and this is very losing. Yeah. And I don't even need to want to look at the pawn endgame actually. My opponent does play it well though, but yeah. Let's look at this with the engine now. Yeah, f5 engine doesn't like. Queen f6, d4 best move. Knight c4 best move. Knight c3 here apparently. Yeah, knight c3 there still. Knight f6. Strange that you lose 0.8 by opponent moving. Whatever. Yeah. Bishop g5 here. I also looked at, of course. But don't you just win the pawn then? No, knight bd7. Bishop g5. Makes sense. But I thought d5 was probably good. For multiple reasons. Castle, castle makes sense. Bishop g5. And knight e3. I mean, I'm still better. And now I'm a lot better, apparently. Bishop. I looked at bishop h5, but I didn't see the point. Wait, this barely works? No, it doesn't even. You win the e-pawn in the end. Jesus. What a line. Cool. Of course I had to see that. But I saw bishop g5 as an option. I didn't see the continuation though. Because you have to really find everything here. You have to do this, then take, then bishop g4, and then h... Oh, you can do other things here as well. You can also play bishop e6 check, and then h5. And then win the e-pawn finally. My god. Whatever. Bishop, knight b5 is like second best-ish. A bit less. Knight a6 makes sense. Again, bishop h5, but it's less strong now. Knight d4, I thought was probably decent. b4 makes sense. Knight. Yeah. Apparently this isn't good. I mean, it makes sense that it's not good, because I can't play bishop g4 still. a5, yeah. b1, g8. Yeah, that's a bad move, of course, but you have to play rook e5, which is quite easy to do. Rook e3, yeah. Rook g3. Okay, we're back to parity. And just king g1. That makes a lot of sense, actually. Yeah, g6. Now king g1 still. Yeah. Why is queen c... Yeah, queen c3 makes sense still, right? Yeah, knight d7. No, no. Wait. Sorry, my opponent took first on e4, or on f3 of course, and then played knight e5. So I didn't have this option, but yeah. So let's see what would happen if this, yeah, same. We just transpose to the, yeah, to the line that I'm looking at now. Now trade everything, and the endgame is just clearly winning. I mean, bishop h5, and like this entire line is the only thing that I had going for me, really. Of course I had to see that. I mean, obviously. Right? And of course, I mean, oh, this doesn't count. No. It's the only thing I had. Great. And after that, like, I lost all of my advantage and then slowly drained out. I mean, that's what you get when you play a 2k rated opponent. See you in the next one, which will be like in less than a week. Probably. We'll see.